So we are on apparently as usual. I can't see us yet, but just give me 1 sec, redirecting to YouTube. And live, perfect. Okay, can I see it now here? Just 1 sec. Yep. All right. Got it. So, okay. I'm just going to, oh, Julie is here. Julie,
Oh,
can you hear us
hi,
and can you
Julie.
see us? Oh, there's some Midwest Maven. Hello, everyone. I just give people 2 minutes to maybe join us because we always get a delay when we meet through Zoom. And then, oh, Joe is here. Okay. Can you guys hear us? I think people can, but let's just, audio and video both great. Cool. Okay. Hey, everyone. Okay, thank you. So I was just briefly telling Ellen before we met online just now, how I was looking through YouTube for interviews with her, because I've been in tarot community since 2014. And I think I bought the Dark Goddess Tarot around 2015 or something like this. It was one of my first decks, still one of my favorites ever. And I know tarot community, I know a lot of us we love Ellen's decks, and I'm like looking for those interviews, and there is nothing with Ellen except for one with Arwen Lynch when you cannot see Ellen. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like, we need to get Ellen on interviews, like we want Ellen. So Ellen, hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
I'm so excited, as you can hear, because, yeah, as I said, I totally appreciate your work. And I know that a lot of people in our community, tarot community here on YouTube, loves your decks. So, yeah, I'm so excited that you agreed to come. And thank you to Julie for like putting in a good word. Julie, our fairy godmother. Yeah, people say like they love the crown, they love the decks, they can hear us, so wonderful. So Ellen, I think for most of people who will watch or rewatch this interview, probably I don't really need to introduce you, but what I would like to introduce you with is what I found that you wrote on your website, and it was about the Dark Goddess Tarot. And you wrote there that Dark Goddess Tarot is your creative vision, and dark speaks to your affinity for the night and the soul, for inner lives and curious powers. Goddess represents your commitment to a personal feminist expression of spirit, and tarot is a sacred system for communion, divination, and deep communication. And I thought we can like unpack it a little bit. So I start with the easiest question. Why tarot, and how come you chose tarot as the system? And yeah, how is tarot doing in your life right now? Because you've created a couple of decks. So let's just start maybe, how come tarot came into your life?
Oh, well, I was given my first deck in a very magical way. I had gone to a women's empowerment retreat that was led by Starhawk.
Yeah.
And this woman had these round cards. It was the Mother Peace deck. And I'd never seen anything like that. So I was curious and asked to look at the cards. And the first cards that I pulled over were like images from the meditation that we had done that morning. And so I just thought, this is magic. Later on in that week that I was there, that same woman did my first tarot card reading for me with that deck. And at the end of it, she just wrapped them up and handed them to me and said, "These are for you." And I was like, yeah. So tarot has always been very connected with my spirituality. and with these, magical occurrences in life. Yeah. And what I'm
How did
doing right
you,
now
and how
is
did you,
working on a new deck.
oh, another one after the Greek.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What now?
I'm really so inspired again, like happened with the Dark Goddess Tarot. That was one where it was very powerful, like how it came out. Like sometimes when I've done writing, I could have the feeling that the words I've written are just kind of coming through me,
Yeah.
When I did the Dark Goddess Tarot, I would move my pencil across the paper and feel like I was not drawing something, but revealing something that was already there. And I'd never had that experience with drawing before. And I just drew like hours a day. And the same thing is happening now. And it hasn't happened since then, since the Dark Goddess. And what I'm doing now is right now I'm calling it the Darker Goddess Tarot. or
Love it.
And I was just inspired about this when I was teaching at Omega in July with Mary Greer. And it came to me then. And since I've come back from that, which has been just, I don't know, 6.5 weeks ago or something like that, I've drawn 20 cards. I'm just like, and I think it's because, because I've liked my other ideas, but there's some kind of other power that's behind this deck, and that was behind the Dark Goddess Tarot. And I think it's because these goddesses want to be more known. They want to have more voice and more connection with people. And this is one way that they can do that. When I was first beginning the Dark Goddess Tarot, I just had a few goddesses that I worked with, and I was interested in the others, and I would read about them, but I didn't feel them, or they didn't really come alive to me. But through doing the deck, all of these goddesses started coming alive to me. It was kind of overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really aware at that time that maybe it was the goddesses themselves who were really part of this, part of the creation, and part of why creating it was so magical and happened so fast, like this one is going. And I thought of the Darker Goddess. I don't know if that'll be the final title, but that's what I'm thinking of it as. Maybe some of the cards will be darker in terms of like scarier goddesses. I'm not going to repeat any. So I'm finding 78 all new goddesses that still fit with tarot.
Wow, but that's quite a task, right? Because you've used
Oh,
a lot of pantheons in the Dark Goddess.
I love doing that. Really, reading all of the stories and seeing how this is what's so great about tarot, is that it's this structure that can encompass so many wonderful energies and ideas and schemes, like the Egyptian gods and goddesses in Julie's case.
Yeah, Julie says that she agrees, and to the creativity, when it flows, and then you just like.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, I'm coloring, with I use alcohol-based art markers. So I'm coloring, and when I'm wanting to do a background, I have to keep the pen moving through whatever section I'm coloring, because if I stop and go back to it, there'll be like that streaky part that I don't like. And I want to, when I want to make an even coloring in this section. So, so my eyes closed twice while I was coloring the background of this. And luckily I didn't like mess up the whole drawing, so I had to redo it. Oh. But after that I was like, okay, goddesses, remember I'm human. I do need to rest sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. So this is going to be totally new 78 goddesses, and also from more of this darker pantheon, or you'll find the darker aspects?
Possibly darker, but also just some of them are just more unknown.
Yeah.
And yeah, one card I drew is not dark at all. It's very cute.
Actually, like cute and dark, you know, they go well. Sometimes cute is the darkest you can get.
I can show you that one. See, I have my little this is what I keep the drawings in. Oh, this is the first one that I did.
The sizes. So this is the original size of
these are the originals. Yeah, I draw them on cardstock because that seems to give the right kind of absorbency with the markers that I'm looking for. Like it stays wet for a certain amount of time, but not a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah, it dries quickly. Yeah, wow.
And this was the first card that I drew for this deck, and this is, you know, the first time I'm showing it in public here. Wow. And this is for the Fool, and this is Ankilan Dashvari, and her name means she who is never not broken. Wow. And so she's a very she never comes together all of the way. She's always kind of in pieces. And so like when you're feeling, you know, like broken and just on the floor and you can't do anything, I think she's very inspirational because her power comes from not being defined by any one thing, which is why I put her as the Fool, as, you know, that kind of all potential space.
Love it. Wow.
Yeah, so she was, and she rides a crocodile because the crocodile kills its prey not with its bite, but by dragging them in the water and then spinning them around until they're all disoriented and they drown.
Wow, I didn't know that about the crocodile.
So it's, yeah, so I thought she was a very interesting goddess. And it was, I was at BATS years ago, the Bay Area Tarot Symposium, and I had a vendor table and I was selling the Dark Goddess Tarot because it had recently come out, my self-published version, which was this one.
These decks, but I left them in Poland. I have all of them.
Yeah,
I have this version. I love it.
This is the version that you can get now since the self-published version is out of print.
Is this one available now? Because I think it was.
It is. This is available now.
This one is available.
It's by Schiffer Publishing, and you can get it on Amazon. And this is the one that has the. This is the one that has the gold on the sides.
Yeah. You know, I'm a fan of the original one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a fan of those backs. I don't know. Do you have input like what you put on the back, or is it more comes from
I didn't have any input on any of that.
But anyway, it's available and people wanted it, so
it's available.
Whatever, it's great. But I just sometimes wonder why the changes when the original was already so great. But that's a different
story. You know, that was what
taste.
They wanted to do. Exactly. I'm just glad that they wanted to do it. What I really do love about this version, I can't find the book now, but it has like a big book that has like full size images of the cards, color images. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought the book designer did a wonderful job with that. So you can see the images even larger than the card size, and then have the writing right next to
That's
it when you're
gorgeous.
using the book. So
Yeah,
that was
is
a
nice.
real
And actually
nice part.
Schiffer does great job with books, I think.
Yeah.
Usually when they print like Guy and Tara or something, when they printed, the book also was much better than the self-published version, you know, better editing, nicer organized. So that's really good, because I got the PDF from you and then I printed it all out as A4, but it was all like black and white and stuff. So yeah, this is nice to have this book, because I mentioned
Yeah.
this before and I have to like butt in again, but I love your decks, but also your writing is so amazing, and especially the Dark Goddess tarot with the companion book. I'm always like in love. I call it like short and punchy, and I was always laughing, that you may need a companion book and somebody writes like 200 pages, and then Ellen Lorenzi-Prince comes and she writes like 3 sentences, but they like boom, boom, boom. Like, thank you, done, okay, get my message, close the door, goodbye. Like, love it. And I love the companion book for the Dark Goddess. I think this is my favorite, because for the Crown you did, like, the little short sentences are also amazing, but there was more like a workbook. You had some spreads and stuff.
Yeah, that was, and those workbooks came after.
Yeah, I got it as a PDF from you as well, I think, because you could buy it, I don't know, like how, if it's on your website or if I emailed you, I can't remember now, but.
Yeah, at darkgoddesstarot.com, you can buy the PDFs.
Yeah, and
but well, I hope I can do it as well, writing with this new deck. We'll see how that goes. I don't write at the same time as I do the drawings.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, how does it work?
I might like collect some information and just paste all of that into a document for me to look at later. But it's just really using a different part of my brain. And so it works better just to stay in this one place and let that flow come. And then, okay, now we're going to, shift 3 feet to the left or whatever it is, and do this other part.
Well, so it's so different for different artists, right? Sometimes people just like do everything together. So you paint and then you go to writing, unless you get some uploads, then you like put it down into like a place and then you can revisit it. Yeah,
or I'm just pasting in information that I'm grabbing from the internet just to refer to, so it's somebody else's writing, but I'm just going to make sure I have it so I don't have to like search for it again.
Yeah. I'm just like looking, Ellen, at the chat, and we have like for later, we have a question. I know we're coming back to showing this, as Jo asked that she's curious what art style inspires you and influences your style. And people say that they love Dark Goddess Tarot because they got to know more goddesses through the deck already. So darker, I love it. The Dark Goddess and the darker goddess.
Oh, well, I'll show you my cutest card that I have, and then we'll go on, okay? Because I was going to do this. So this would be the 3 of Water, or the 3 of Cups, and it's mermaids.
Oh,
so aren't they cute? I really wanted to do them more fishy looking, and in their element. They're not just like sitting on the rocks, being alluring for the sailors or whatever. They're just having kind of fun, doing their own thing there.
Yeah, very cute.
Some of them are not so cute, but that is a cute one and a nice colorful one. Okay, wait, where were we?
We were actually, can we see one more?
Oh, yeah. I have.
We were talking about the darker goddess. Now we're curious about like what else can you show us? Just one more. I know I'm pushing my luck, but
I'll show the one that I finished yesterday. That'll be my newest one. And this is the Eight of Air, or the Eight of Swords. And this is Yuki Onna, which is a Japanese snow woman who will, freeze you to death. So it's
love the iciness of the feel when you look, like, yeah, the coloring just feels icy. Yeah.
So it's it's about like that kind of paralysis and being frozen or feeling bound up, like you might get with the Eight of Air.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun to do all of these different new goddesses.
So do you do like research? Do you get like visions which goddess you like, or when you read about them, you're like, oh yeah, I would love to show this one? How do you do research on, like, how do you choose them?
Well, sometimes I'll do the internet. I'll just do a search on Japanese goddesses, for instance, or Aztec goddesses, or something like that. With that first one, Ankilandeshwari, I was at, that's what I was going to say. I was at Bats and selling my decks, and somebody just walked up to me and said, oh, have you heard of this goddess? And I was like, no. and then also at Omega, somebody said, oh, have you heard of this dark goddess? And I said, no. And so that's been really interesting to find out more. And then I also got, I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure. I'm just looking if anybody, Julie says that Schiffer has always been a publisher of art books. Before they started publishing tarot, maybe that's why they get the books so good. And Shaz is asking if it's possible to get all of your decks in Europe. I always bought them from your website, actually. I don't know.
Yeah. You can get this through Amazon.com. So if you can do Amazon where you are, then I'm sure you could get this.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't, followed all of this. I'm not very good marketer of my stuff, obviously.
Obviously, you were never interviewed.
I put it out there and then let it do what it's going to do. And someone has to ask me, for interview, and somebody has to ask me to teach, and I don't go out looking for these things.
Yeah,
because
I remember I asked you years ago, but I think then you were moving, and it wasn't a good time. And because I only remembered when I went to write you again on Facebook, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I asked you already.
Yeah. But then I decided to order this book.
Okay, Encyclopedia of Spirit.
And so that's been fun.
Yeah.
So I looked through the whole thing, and just, that was a way to find a lot of different goddesses without doing specific internet searches, because you have to get pretty specific with the internet searches, or you don't get what you're looking for, or you get such general stuff, and I'm looking for deeper things, and if you just search for goddess on the internet, you'll get things like pictures of Marilyn Monroe or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So when you go, like, you find one, let's say, as an like writing or image, and then when you start painting, because your writing is so original, it's not like, Kali is the goddess of, like, it's not something you just like find online. It's like, it's so well put into words and like mish and mash. And then you had these practical tips that you can do in that goddess tarot. So when you paint, like, the goddess kind of opens up in a way, like, she just, like, how do you get the ideas of what they are good for, or what you can do with it?
Well, I look for a lot of goddesses that I'm interested in, and I just make lists. With the Dark Goddess Tarot, I started with the water suit, because when I first had the idea of Bong Dark Goddess Tarot, I also immediately thought of Sedna as the 8 of water. I mean, she just immediately came into my mind.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so then I started doing research on water goddesses or associated with water. And then just reading through their stories, just finding some place within their story or their energy that could touch what I knew of the tarot energy of the cards. And then I thought, oh, that's a possibility. And so then I would look at it more and see if I could, really bring them together into one kind of statement when I was writing, one kind of picture when I was drawing, that would show both the goddess as I could sense her, and then, but also including the tarot.
Yeah.
What's different about this one that I'm working on is I've just decided not to be concerned about showing the number, which I did in the Dark Goddess Tarot. If it was the 9 of something, there was 9 of somethings,
Yeah.
Somehow in the image. And I've just decided not to do that.
So it's going to be like 10 cards for water, but no numbers of the cards.
There will be the numbers on the titles, but there won't be 10.
So
I mean, the one that I showed you, of the 3 of water, there are the 3 mermaids. But like the 2 doesn't really show 2 of something, except for showing, a figure in the sun above her.
Yeah, get you. Okay, so it's not going to be like 5 goddesses on the 5 and not going to be 6. Yeah, that's okay. That doesn't.
Yeah, or 2 torches on the 2 of fire, or I mean, that was partly why Hecate fit very well with the 2 of fire, is because she's always shown carrying 2 torches in Greek art.
That was an easy choice. Yeah, true. She could be also a 3 of something, because she is always shown on the crossroads, 3 roads. Yeah. So actually, if we go back quickly to this, when you kind of got this first tarot reading, so when did you start thinking of I'm going to make my own deck? What was the process? Because you learned, obviously, tarot.
It was a long time afterwards. Let's see. So I was given that first deck. Let's see. That was 1985. And it wasn't until sometime in the 90s, and I think in the later part of the 90s, because there was internet and all of that. I know there's internet before then, but there was an online group called Tarot L. And at that point, it was a listserv that was, before the Yahoo groups or e-groups, before any of the other social media. There was occasionally listservs run by hobbyists, really, on whatever computer that they had. And there was a discussion on that group about, where in the majors could you see the Maiden, Mother, and the Crone? And so some people started responding, and I was like, yeah, but this could be the Crone, and this could be the Crone, and this could be the Crone, and this could be the Crone. And I said, I could do a whole deck for the Crone. And somebody wrote back and said, well, let's see it then. And I was like, but there was also that kind of bong
excitement. Yeah.
And I had recently, I just used the Mother Piece deck for years, and I really identified with it. And then I got to a point where it wasn't really speaking to the complications of my life, how my life had become in the intervening years. And I kept on looking for another deck, and I would get this or try this. And some I liked, and some were, magical in their own ways. But I think I was looking for something else. And then that moment, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a deck for the crone. You know, it just,
And this was the first
it's,
deck, right, that you did
yeah,
of the crone.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
very witchy. It's very like the color palette. It's kind of not, maybe not limited, but it's not like all the
it
colors
is
in the
limited.
world. Yeah, and I have it also in the small version. You know, the old version. Probably not the first edition, but not the like that's the one that looks
Oh,
like
the
it has this
very,
like kind of spider webs on the backs.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the second edition.
Oh, the second one, yeah.
Yeah, after the handmade one. And this was, so this is the crone deck that it doesn't have, this was like my very first one, even before the handmade one. And
Oh,
you can see how thick it is.
Oh, yeah.
And this was when, oh yeah, all right, I'm gonna have to get a different paper for the back that isn't as thick. But, you know, it was all like hand cut and yeah, so this is the very first
Wow.
deck. And then the handmade ones look like this, but they weren't so thick and haven't been around the block so much or whatever. But
oh, the Empress, beautiful. And I asked you, and you said no, but I asked you if you maybe created the crone tarot during the menopause because
yeah, no, I was in my early 40s.
Yeah.
And it was just I've just always loved the crone and the stories of transformation and the goddesses who deal with kind of dark and difficult things, because that's what helped me with my dark and difficult stuff is having a goddess who I thought knew the way through this.
Yeah.
You know, and wasn't just telling me, you know, cheer up, honey, go out and get laid like Aphrodite might do.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's okay.
Which I don't,
move on, move on. Yeah, yeah.
Don't mean to just that way at all. I love you, Aphrodite. But
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but you're right. Like also in the new deck, that you know, the one that never gets kind of, that is never not broken.
Never not broken.
I love that. It's such a evocative image, especially when you go through something really, you know, horrific, and you never be whole again in a way. You know, if you lose a child or what, you know, whatever it is for people.
Right.
And yes, you can kind of mend and move on and be happy and live, but like there is part of you that will never fucking forget or not be like it's not going to be whole, you know, it's just there. And it's
right.
Yeah, so
right.
I think for people to have these images, do you know this oracle deck by Caroline Hillier, Weaver's Oracle? She created these images of these like ancient mothers. And
yes, I think a friend of mine had that and showed it to me. It's like all kind of dark in the background.
Yeah, like the black kind of sides, and she painted just this amazing different like,
yes.
And like she is incredible because she also has like dissolving woman, you know, silenced woman. So like if you had like, let's say, breast cancer or something, you know, she shows this like one woman with just like this wound over here. And I just think these images are so important because we all go through different shit and different times in our lives. And yeah, sometimes even the positive decks, of course, are very important as well. And main positive, like this more kind of up and go. But I think too, like it's so helpful when you actually know there is this deeper, darker parts also in the goddess, in something in the spirit that you can actually connect to and that understand, you know.
And I think it's great to have all the decks, all the different decks. But this is the one these are the ones that I can do.
Yeah. That's
And
part of
so
the
it's
deal.
important to me to do them and to put them out there. And I don't think, like dark goddesses are the only goddesses that should be around, or the only goddess energy that exists, but it's the one where I can connect with it. And so I can translate it or give it out into the world, I think, in a way that somebody who doesn't really connect with it, should do a different text.
Yeah, can do it. Exactly. There was a question here, like, what were some of the first cards you drew from the Tarot of the Crown? And what do you remember about your emotional landscape while you were completing those images, which you kind of answered a little bit. But do you remember the first images?
The very first one that I drew and was Sacrifice, the Weeping Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually drew about 5 cards in colored pencil. And then I thought, I can't do this anymore. My hands are cramping too much. And so I started over and did the outline and then the ink wash in these cards.
Yeah. So were your originals always kind of around the size that you showed before from the Darker Goddess deck?
Yeah.
They kind of the same size. Yeah. That's your...
Yeah, they're just kind of double.
Yeah, a little bit bigger, but not like humongous.
Yeah, no. I don't really work like that.
Yeah.
So much. So yeah, when I started redrawing this, I did again. I think Sacrifice was the first card that I drew, but I didn't really go in very much order. It just, I had like notes of my ideas. Some of it I started going in order. I went in order when it worked, but if I got stuck, I would jump to somewhere else.
Where you felt,
and go somewhere else for a while with it and then come back.
Yeah.
But I know when I was doing, I was drawing the Tower card, and I'm looking for it now. And it was a very interesting time because the energies were really coming alive for me. And that was what was so magical about creating a deck. And I actually think everybody should try one, because and not some, Insta deck or whatever, but sitting and thinking about one card and, just even pulling images from a magazine or from the internet or whatever, and looking at this collection of images that are like, this is that card, and spending that, a concentrated time just thinking about what that card means to you and what it brings out in you, what images that you see or thoughts that you have or words that you have seem to speak to the energy of that card. I think that's just a wonderful thing to do, because then you'll get to know the tarot like nothing else.
Yeah,
really.
It's like this personal link to the archetypes. Yeah.
Oh, so I was doing so I was working on the Tower card.
Oh yeah, that was the tower. I was trying to remember how the tower looked. I couldn't remember. Yeah.
And this I actually created by drawing the face and then cutting it apart and gluing it on top of a yellow background.
Wow.
And so I was creating this card and I got a phone call. I was doing contract software development at that time. And I got a phone call from the person I was working with, and they said, can you go to Australia next week? And so there's that, like sudden change out of the blue. Yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, but my passport is expired. So then I also had to drive to San Francisco, which was the closest place where I could go to a passport office and do that. I was living in Eureka, California, in the Redwood country at that point. Yeah. And then while I was waiting for my appointment at the passport office, this man passing by me on the street with this huge knife like this turned and looked at me and was like,
No way. Like he
and
was seriously just walking with a knife?
Yeah, seriously, walking down the street with a knife. I had gotten him like a bottled drink or something like that, and was waiting for my appointment, just standing out on the street. And then this one person walked by me really quickly, and it was like, that guy, but I didn't hear what they said. And I'm like, what? And then I turned around and looked and like met eyes, met the gaze of this person walking down the street with the knife. And he was like deranged looking and ragged looking. And so because we met eyes, he like turned to me and started walking towards me. So I just like threw the contents of my drink in his face. So then he, and I ran off. But then that was like, okay, there's another part of the tower that can happen. And I better well start on the star card before I get on that plane.
It gets darker and darker. Oh, the star card, beautiful. I'm just checking if there is some questions. Candy says, oh, the freedom of never not broken. Yes, that was the first goddess she encountered as the first one. Sadhana is here. Hi to everyone. Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's, Joe says the great advice to create your own deck. And Tammy says you'd never get a passport so quickly these days. So it was lucky. That's true.
That was a different time. I could just go and it just needed to be renewed. It wasn't getting a brand new one. But
still, even this,
now it's like getting it one day and 3 days later getting on the plane.
Totally.
Different times.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about the devotion, if we can say so, to the goddess. So from this statement, that the goddess represents your commitment to personal feminist expression of spirit. So no wonder that your first deck was Mother Peace, which now I keep thinking how amazing work that Vicky Noble and who's the other one? When they created the Mother Peace deck at this time.
Karen.
Vicky Noble and Karen.
I can't remember.
Anybody can help us out here? But
someone who can look it up.
Exactly. Everybody knows what we're talking about. But I thought, like, at this time when you only had like Rider-Waite-Smith, Toff, and Tarot de Marseille at most, and then she comes with this deck that's even now when you buy it, it still could be created yesterday type of thing. How cool, like that was like must have been so different, and the round shape in general, like amazing. So I was wondering like about your like connection to the goddess, and as I mentioned when we talked just before we went online, that I actually like that you in some way just see the goddess like in such broad way, that it's not just this like one, I'm like, let's say like I'm very devotional towards Mary, but in some way Mary I see as a as Isis and as Venus, as and like she has a lineage, she's not just came out of nowhere. So I don't know, how would you say
what I understand about that is that
Karen
the goddess can be very
Fogel.
Oh yes
Vicky Noble and Karen Fogel. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. The goddess can be very specific to me and appear to me in personal interactions in a very specific way. But what I understand about that is that that's who she is for me. And that she's much bigger than that. So who she is to other people is going to be I think everybody needs to have a personal vision of what, the divine and the bigger stuff is for them, and only take in from other people what really resonates or what really does speak to, who you are.
Yeah, I agree.
I was always a kind of mystical, spiritual kid. And I think I was 11 years old, and I was visiting my grandmother, and I was taking a shower, and then I suddenly had like this overwhelming rush of loving energy just go through my body, and I like fell down in the shower because it was so powerful. So I asked my grandmother about that. I wouldn't have asked my mom. She would have thought I was like ill or something. But what my grandmother said was, well, that's Jesus, honey, And so I went and I read the Bible cover to cover, found out what all this was about, and, was into that for about a year. And then it was like, okay, that's too small. That's too limited a definition, even in all these words. So I kind of went on from there. And so I guess I was maybe looking for something and trying to figure out something on my own. But then Starhawk put out the book, The Spiral Dance. And this was in the early 80s. And I was like, and that was my first time that I thought, oh, there's other people who think like that now. And it wasn't because I was always reading like The White Goddess by Robert Graves, or, the mythologies, or all of these kind of ancient things. And this was the first book that I'd come across where like, there's people now who are doing this, who are wanting this, who, so that was really kind of, it was kind of like the new pagan feminist goddess movement that was happening in the 80s. And so I just kind of got part of that. I went to that retreat, as I said. And then when I came home, I actually found a couple different circles to be in. And the first circle that I went to, she was like, okay, who wants to lead the next circle? And, was always shy, but I was like,
take me.
Take me. And I had taught myself like kind of a way to meditate, or actually to do self-hypnosis. When I was 13 years old, I had a spinal fusion for scoliosis, and I had to wear a body cast for 9 months. And so I started like trying to practice hypnosis in order to heal myself and to relieve myself of the pain. And so that was kind of an interesting thing, because I did my 8th grade science fair project on hypnosis and hypnotizing.
Did you paint the cast?
No, I covered it all completely. I just didn't even want to see it. I was like so ashamed of it. It was like a horrible thing. I also had braces at that time. And so the kids called me Frankenstein at school, it was.
Yeah.
I just went inward, really, with that. But so when I first started, really being introduced to the goddesses, I continued with like doing trance journeys and meditations. And that's where I really developed my personal relationship with Hecate, which was the first goddess who really came alive for me.
Yeah.
Which is like not just reading about her, thinking about her, even being inspired about her, but where you start like having these conversations.
Yeah. somebody, Julie says that spiral dance was huge for her as well. And we have also one question, if you write poetry outside of your tarot endeavors.
I do write poetry. Most of my poetry is pretty dark because I usually write it when I'm sad.
No surprise here, Ellen. It's okay.
You know, it's one of the ways that I've can express those difficult feelings. And once I can express them and get them kind of outside in me, they don't haunt me in the same way, you know, because they're not just only living in here. I put them out here a little bit. And this is why I think, you know, artistic expression can be so important and can be so healing, you know, in whatever way it comes to you, because it's like, not everything just has to live right inside your head. You can get it out.
Yeah. And what you find when you get out, that other people respond to it and they can be healed through.
Right.
That's so interesting, like how that we're so connected like this. And I think whatever work you're doing, and I don't know, would you say, is this because of how your life panned out, that you maybe had like the braces when you were a child, you know, that there was like so difficult experiences in some way when you, that this darkness was easier for you to express? Or do you feel like you chose it as a contract for this life? Who knows, you know? Like how
yeah, my family was somewhat dysfunctional, but not that much, you know, and more like the generational dysfunctional of the way families were and the way they were raising kids, you know, in the early 60s and stuff. I felt very misunderstood. I was the only kind of earth and water person in a family of fire and air people. And I remember when I was, you know, 5 years old and coming to the dinner table or breakfast table and wanting to talk about this, you know, fantastic dream that I'd had, and everyone just staring at me. My older sister saying, "You're weird," and my parents going on with their conversation as if I had said nothing at all.
Yeah, for a child.
So it was just like, oh, you know, this is something that I just have to keep hidden, and is only for me, you know, this kind of inner world, you know, this. And also sometimes like hearing what people were thinking, even though they said something different. And it was like, oh, you know, you're not supposed to respond to the words that they aren't saying out loud. You know, you have to keep these threads separate. Mm-hmm. And that's the way you get through life. So.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there's like my grandparents, and feeling like my great grandmother in particular, you know, was always telling me stories and always holding me. And, you know, I was the third out of 4 children. When I was born, my mom had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. She didn't have that time to hold me. Yeah, so I don't know, you know, I didn't have, I mean, I've had traumatic events happen, but not really inflicted on me so much from my family, you know, except for their kind of, you know, it was kind of cold and distant, you know, and focused on just make sure you get good grades at school. And that's,
and good money when you work. And
so it just didn't have a lot of nurturing on that side for me, but there wasn't, you know, so I don't know where I understood all this other darker stuff from, but I seem to understand it from a very early age when I would hear about it or read about it, or someone would say something to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always fascinating. Like Julie does her like astrology work, and she puts so much like heart into this, and that's like part of what she's sharing, you sharing the dark goddess stuff and the experiences that we can also relate to. And I think, yeah, like you said, that it's not just for dark goddesses, but that's the work that you can do. And I think that's amazing, because that's
when I did the Tarot of the Crone, I thought this was such a personal deck. It was only about my own spiritual journey. I thought it would never speak to anybody. I thought, how could it? It was just from me, it's only my thing. But then I realized that's how it speaks to other people, is because when it comes from such a authentic place, then people go, yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah, there's a lot of us in you, and vice versa. That's what always shows, like, we actually so kind of somehow connected, without realizing how much we are similar and have similar needs and feel similarly. Doesn't matter if you're older, younger, from Poland, from USA, or it doesn't really matter. But it's always lovely, I think, now with the internet and with like how much information we can pass along, that it just like suddenly it became like so type of obvious. But before it wasn't so easy to realize this, because we weren't as connected, right?
Right. People often, and I think many people still do, but people often just felt alone. Like nobody. Maybe some people in books, some story that you might read and you thought, oh, that person might be able to understand me.
Yeah, exactly. And we get these comments here, like how people think it's relatable or comforting to work with, with your decks. So yeah, that's really cool. Okay, what else do I have here? Oh, okay, like this lighter question now. Which is a favorite from your deck? Do you have a favorite from the decks that you made? So from your decks, is the Dark Goddess or?
My favorite is the Dark Goddess Tarot.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Yeah, if I had to like run out of a burning building and grab one deck, that would be the one that would be the one. And I appreciate the Crone for, it being my first, and how much it meant and how many doors it opened really for me. But yeah, the Dark Goddess Tarot just has the magic for me. And it was interesting because I'd created it, but then, I got it produced, and then it's like, okay, here it is. Oh, I have to learn how to work with this now. It was really, it was a really, I knew the goddesses, I guess, but still working with it as a real companion, the way I'd become accustomed that the Tarot of the Crone was a companion.
Yeah.
That actually took a while. So that was really interesting. I didn't necessarily expect that.
Yeah. Well, we have like Mary White also from Mary L. Tarot in the chat saying hello. Julie, somebody said, oh, all the geniuses in one spot. Nice to see you, Marie. Hi. So do you have a favorite kind of deck outside of your decks? Like, is there anything come to mind? Do you use tarot like this that you kind of?
I use my own decks the most often.
Yeah.
And on a daily basis. One of the decks that in any deck that I have, I might still pull out at random. One that I pull out more often might be Rachel Pollack's Shining Tribe.
I love this deck. Yeah.
That, and her writing is wonderful in the book. And so when I need some other kind of perspective that's very wise, that I feel can be inclusive, but more wise and with more humor, because I'm not I'm not necessarily known for my sense of humor. That's the other side of being,
Maybe it's, it's hidden deeply, but I don't have any issues with this. I think your sense of humor is just right along my alley. Thank you. Dark sense of humor I appreciate. Somebody asked, Tammy says about the Minoan tarot, that she loves the Minoan because it's so different. And I agree, but oh my God, I think from Minoan, I still have it. I bought it, of course, from you as well, but I'm just wondering about this, how I want to put it. Well, it's bloody hard to read because it's just so,
yeah, it's very different.
Very Minoan.
But it was interesting. I just put it out, and I had gone to a reader's studio, and this was, I think I must have just had a handmade version of it, because I don't think I had the Dark Goddess or anything. I just had a Tarot of the Crone. And then the minute I got to Reader's Studio, somebody wanted to buy the Tarot of the Crone off me, so I sold it. So I only had this handmade version of the Minoan to work with for like the very first reading. And so then here was a man asking me about his job as a financial analyst. And here I am reading with this brand new Minoan tarot. And it worked. This is like the magic of tarot. It gave him really good advice. And so I still, the Minoan tarot is really great for just remembering the beauty and hopefulness and liveliness and just our more ancient souls,
Yeah.
So
maybe if it's kind of how we know about Minoan culture, maybe also like a totally different systemic approach to life, right? That like, culture and beauty and connection rather than war and building walls and separating ourselves from others. Yeah, hopefully we can get it somehow and maybe repeat it. Everything already was, so we can just choose good things that happened before and put them.
And I have always loved that culture. And when I went to Crete for the first time and walking through the museum and seeing all the art and going to the sites and just really feeling, really felt that connection with the land there as well. And I have been to Egypt, and I think all of the Egyptian stuff is like fascinating, but I don't have that same soul connection, and I don't have that same land connection, and I loved being able to learn about it, but it wasn't the same. But when I went to Crete, there it was.
I haven't been yet, so I can't. I've been to Egypt, and I always thought that the pyramids will be the most boring for me, because I thought they saw like over, like when you have like too much hype about it. But when I got to pyramids, that was actually my highlight. Like I spent the whole day there, no tours, nothing, just we went by ourselves, and we spent the whole day just walking around. And it was after there was like some minor, I don't know, there was some bomb or something that went off, so many tourists there wasn't many tourists around in Egypt. And it was just so amazing. Like we just hang out whole day, just walking around, nobody bothering us, no bullshit. It was so incredible. I never forget that. Like I had magical story happening with Sphinx, and it was just incredible. So I was surprised, because that was the least I expected from the pyramids. I thought it wasn't going to be so amazing, but it actually blew me away. But I haven't been to Crete yet, or to what's the other one? To Malta. I would love to go to Malta.
I haven't been there. I haven't been there either.
Yeah.
The part of Egypt where I felt the most at home was actually Upper Egypt. And then I kind of thought, maybe it's because I'm standing on granite again, and I think maybe that's being an earth sign. I feel like better in like places that are rockier. And Lower Egypt is not like that. There's the whatever mile of mud or whatever you're standing
Yeah.
on at that point.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah. So I don't know, is there any other questions, guys, that you want me to ask Ellen? Because I kind of ran out of my questions. But if anybody wants to maybe ask any more questions, Ellen, maybe you want to share one more original if you feel like it, or is it too so
No,
if
that's
somebody
fine.
joined later, Ellen is working on a new deck, and it's the working title is The Darker Goddess. Ellen doesn't know
Darker
yet if
Goddess
she's going to
Tarot.
keep it like this, but she has shown a couple of images, originals from this new deck. So if you want to check it out, just rewatch it from the beginning. But yeah, that's so exciting. Because the last deck you've done, it was, I don't have this one. It's like a Greek mythology.
Yeah, the Greek Goddess Tarot.
Greek goddess,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. It's all of the majors are the elder goddesses, like the Titans and the primordial goddesses. And then the suits are like the suit of arrows or wands is for Artemis. So every card talks about a different aspect of her myth or about herself. And then swords are Athena and the cups are Aphrodite. And then the suit of grain, which is Demeter.
Okay, yeah, that fits her.
So I will show you this one. So this one is the hag of water. And this is the washer at the ford.
Oh gosh, I love this.
So this one might be one of the darker ones.
I love it. So tell us a little bit more about her. Like,
the washer at the ford is from a Scottish legend, or generally like British Isles. She's kind of a form of the banshee.
okay, yeah.
She's this kind of magical fairy woman and she's washing bloody linen in a stream. And if you come across her, that is an omen of death.
Wow.
It might be your death unless you kind of get to know her and make friends with her, and then she'll tell you secrets of the other world.
Wow.
Or she might be signifying the death of a like major figure, like certain banshees would appear when the king was going to die, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So I guess nobody would want to pull her. Like,
well, unless you're really, I mean, you know, what there's, you know, unless you're taking the death card out of your tarot deck all the time, and we've all faced that death card. And so this is that similar thing. You have to face some kind of death before you can cross this water and find out, you know, more of the secrets.
True. Is she going to, no, she's not going to be deaf, is she? Or is she?
No, she's she's the hag of water.
Ah, hag of water.
Yeah.
Do you already have death card or not yet?
I've thought of who I might use for the death card, but I haven't totally fixed on that yet.
Okay. All right. Well, Ellen, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we say goodbye?
Oh gosh, just like, hey everybody, thanks for watching.
I think everybody really enjoyed it. There's a lot of lovely people in the chat, and I'm just checking if I maybe missed any questions, but I think, yeah. The Dark Goddess Tarot has such amazing energy to work with. It comes through very powerfully. Thank you for the wonderful gift. Lennon says the Tarot of the Crown and Minoan Tarot are her faves. Tammy also loves Minoan. Oh yeah, that has been such a treat. It has been a treat. Thank you, Ellen. And everybody
thank you.
says thank you and hello, and yeah, a question. How do you approach creating the court cards? Oh, classifications you decide on. Because you often go hard. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
It, you know, it depends on the deck and the theme of the deck. so for the crone deck, I was thinking, you know, if I get a page, well, I'm not really going to use a young person in a crone deck. So I'm looking for some kind of more elemental or innocent energy. And that's why where I came up with the idea of the beast.
Yeah.
And then then there is in the crone deck, there is like the witch and the grandmother. And so I thought, okay, these are both people who have the power of their suit. You know, the witch is like for the knight in the crone deck. So they have these powers of their suit, but the witch is going to like go on, you know, focused on their own purposes, their own kind of quest, their own path. Whereas the grandmother, the queen, is more focused on the community or the family. So I thought that was a way that I could include. Yeah, so it's just, I just think about that theme and see how it would fit. You know, I'm not going to use Ping in a goddess deck. In this darker goddess tarot, I'm actually going back to Beast for in the first dark goddess tarot. I had the Amazon and the Siren for the first two, and then there was the Witch and the Hag. And I'm keeping the Witch and the Hag, but I'm now doing Beast and Warrior.
So Beast would be like a page, and Warrior would be like a knight.
Like the knight, yeah.
Then the queen.
Yeah. And that's just what seemed to fit for this time around. This is the warrior. So this is Ka'ahu Pahau. So she's the Hawaiian shark goddess.
Wow.
Who protects your people from the sharks.
I just love your art because it's like just feels so primal, you know, like.
So yeah, and so this is nice, you know. She was one I hadn't really heard of before or thought of before, and she has some interesting stories.
Yeah.
But then for the beast, I did La Baleen, who's the whale, who's Afro-Caribbean, and so I drew her just as the beast, and these layers are just to represent how she brings mysteries up from the depths up to the surface.
Oh gosh, like when you explain the art, sometimes it's like, I never forget it now whenever I see it. This deck is going to be so interesting because I don't know half of the goddesses that you're talking about. That's amazing because I also love learning through tarot, and that's like I love art and I love learning. So sometimes tarot is like this great book. Like
it is.
It's like,
and then throw in the magic. It's like, wow.
Totally. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Everybody just says thank you for conversation. Thank you. We also thank you for being here with us. Ellen, it was so lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
And we're waiting eagerly for the new deck then. It sounds amazing. And since it's coming like the Dark Goddess Tarot, then Darker Goddess will be probably also punchy. It's amazing. And we're wishing you all the best. Lots of health, lots of ideas, and make the deck quickly.
Thank you.
And it was lovely to get to meet you and to have you on my channel seriously and share, you know, your work, because as I said, we really appreciate it, and it was not enough of you on YouTube. So maybe I get you again when you would closing off the deck or something. We can talk about the new deck maybe a bit more in depth. That would be interesting to maybe share. And thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and we speak to you soon.